Hi, Vince. I'm fine, thank you.
And I think Erin just joined us.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hi, Erin.
Perfect. This is good. And we are
We're live.
live. Awesome.
Great.
Well, everyone, thank you for joining us. This is the first episode of Lucky Duck Quack, a new podcast run by Lucky Duck Games. And today we're just kind of be going over some basic things about the company, our upcoming projects, and just have some fun. And then, next episodes we'll kind of dive deeper into things. So I guess my first question for you both, again, we're joined by Vince and Philippe from Lucky Duck Games. So can we first explain kind of, I guess, what our roles are with Lucky Duck Games, just very briefly? I'll go first. So I'm in charge of social media at Lucky Duck Games. So a lot of the posts you see on Facebook and Twitter are created by myself, and the live streams are done by me, and the giveaways I run as well. So Vince, can you tell us a little bit about kind of your role with Lucky Duck Games?
Sure. So I'm actually mostly in charge of running our Kickstarter. I've funded the company, so my role has shifted a lot. But most recently, my biggest role right now is to look for intellectual property that we work with, some social media presence as well, and mostly running our Kickstarter, as well as supervising the company's daily life. Philippe.
Hi, guys. So my role at Lucky Duck is creative director. So basically, I'm this happy and lucky guy who's just constantly playing prototypes all of the time. So I'm responsible for looking for new games, for relationship with game designers, and all this stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah, there's just so many things that go into the company, and everyone kind of has their strong suits and kind of pumps out these awesome games for you guys. And Vince, can you tell us a little bit about, I guess, how Lucky Duck Games came to be and the story behind the company, and maybe how long, you've been in business with Lucky Duck Games and all of that?
Sure. So Lucky Duck Games actually is born out of a project that started from the video game side. So the story is that I've been running video game company for 10 years. One was called Kobojo, the other one called Everyday I Play. And both of them had in common the fact that they were free-to-play companies. Those free-to-play companies basically had millions of daily users most of the time. And we tried basically to sell objects to those players beside digital goods for the last 10 years. Mostly T-shirt, mugs, and overall, none of this was remotely interesting or to those players, basically. And 3 years ago, my brother actually came to me asking me for some visuals on one of my games called Vikings Gone Wild. Vikings Gone Wild was actually the first game of Everyday I Play. Everyday I Play was focused on strategy mobile games. And I accepted to give him those visuals only if he would actually use them to do a port of Vikings Gone Wild, the online game, into a board game. Fast forward 6 months later, and I'm trying a prototype for my brother, which I absolutely fall in love with, and decide to become a one-time publisher. At the time, there is no reason to think I will become forever a board game publisher. We're just determined to make this a reality. And we work on it for over a year, and have a very successful Kickstarter in June 2016. But right before the Kickstarter, as things become more and more real, I realized that Everyday Play as a company was completely unequipped to be a board game publisher. The world of mobile development and board game development and distribution is completely different. And that's how Lucky Duck was born. After the success of Vikings Gone Wild, it became very clear that we needed a new home for this board game.
Mm-hmm.
And basically the whole arc of the company was born on this. Like, why don't we go get more video game IPs and try to reproduce the success we had with the Vikings Gone Wild? And fast forward 2 years later, we're actually over 10 people full time. We have actually, yesterday I was looking with Theo that we have over 63 different SKUs. An SKU is basically a different unit between all the game we've produced and all the different languages we've produced. 2 years later, we've made more than 63 different products. So that makes me very proud. So that's the backstory of how Lucky Duck was born. Yep.
And this is a question for you both, and I can answer it as well. But what surprised you the most about the board game industry, or what continues to surprise you about the board game industry? You kind of came from the video game side of things and transitioned into this kind of whole other analog world. I guess what has surprised you the most for both of you, I guess, working in the board game industry?
I can start if you want, Philippe.
Go ahead.
My biggest surprise is a very strong shift from the video game industry, which is actually a very anonymous and very much more colder things. Basically, people work in an office, never or rarely meet their players, except if you're like, Blizzard. And so it has a much more anonymous kind of relationship with players, where in board games, actually, first of all, the industry is a lot warmer because you go to convention, right? There's convention all the time, so you meet people. It is a much more social hobby, and in that it's a very, very rewarding, and I'm very grateful. This is our daily job in a sense, because it's a lot warmer all over compared to video games. Philippe?
Yeah, so for me it's slightly different because I did not switch from being a mobile game developer to board games. So I'm in this industry from like 8-9 years, and it's it's not a surprise anymore. But for me, the most important thing is that most of the people in our industry are board game geeks, and basically they love games. And special thing and most important thing about board games is that you play it together with other people. So because of that, most of the people in this industry likes to talk to other people, to be with them. So it's a very, very friendly industry. That's what I love the most about being in board game business.
I think what I like the most about the board game industry is just, especially when you have an idea for a game, or you're talking about like, where can I get this insert, or whatever you run into when you're, become obsessed with board games like myself. You run into that. There's a ton of people who are just so warm and welcoming to give you feedback and, answers to your questions on all the different social media groups surrounding board games. And that's what, especially with my role at Lucky Duck, I've really enjoyed kind of connecting with everyone, and not just, while I'm on the job, but like just as a board game nerd myself. It's just everyone's really, really nice, and, are happy to give their opinions about things. And it's very fun. So I guess to transition, I think we should talk about our latest board game that we're working on all together, which is Mutants. And it's on Kickstarter right now. And so can you tell us, Philip, I guess a little bit about the game and then how you were introduced to it?
Yeah, sure. So Mutants, the card game, it's a asymmetric 1-4 player deck builder about mutants. So we are side captains, so leaders of groups of mutants. We're sending them to arena to fight for glory. So that's the theme of the game. The game, it's actually a tabletop implementation of Mutants Genetic Gladiators, so the mobile game, like we usually and very often do at Lucky Duck. So, and it's designed by Senfong Lim and Jesse Wright, two very talented designers. And it's we are live on Kickstarter at the moment. The coolest feature of the game, I guess, first is this asymmetry aspect, because there are many deck builders on the market, but in most of them you have just one market of cards, the same for all players. We're buying same cards, we're creating different decks, but they are similar somehow. And in mutants, each player has completely different asymmetric gene pool. We call it gene pool. So it's a team of 6 or to 12 different mutants, which are available only for you. Only you can buy those during the game to your deck. And other thing, it's I guess very cool system of building combos, but they're connected with timing of your play. So basically, you have your player mat with your part of arena. You have 3 spots for 3 different mutants there, and each round you have to move one of the mutants, and you play a new one. In one of the possible ways, and each mutant usually has 2 different abilities. One called Deploy triggers when the mutant enters the arena, and second called Leave triggers when the mutant is leaving the arena. So you always have very cool aspect of planning, 1, 2, 3 turns ahead, and how to make the best possible combo out of this game. So I guess that's the 2 strongest feature of this game.
And I guess what attracted you the most about this game? You know, part of your role is deciding which prototypes you kind of bring forward to be a part of Lucky Duck games. What attracted you about mutants? What was kind of your gut instinct about it?
Okay, so it's a funny story behind that, because actually I guess it was Vince exactly like 1 year ago when we met, because I'm working for Lucky Duck from the beginning of this year. So we met like 2 months before I started working, and Vince showed me few prototypes he already received. He received at that moment for playtesting, and we were discussing this. Okay, so which of those should we pick up? Which of those should we work on and publish? And so I had a meeting with this very nice guy, but we were just after our 2 first interviews, and now okay, so I need to decide. And at the end of the day, it appeared that the mutants was the only of these prototypes. So I guess we played like 6 or 8 when I told Vince immediately, "Hey, dude, there's few really great things in this game. We really should focus on this game." So I had this gut feeling from the very beginning. You're completely right, and I love competitive card games. So I used to play lots of Hearthstone. I'm a Gwent player. So for me, I already seen this possibility of very, very innovative system, and I've seen this possibility to build a great competitive card game out of this, even this early prototype of Mutants.
That's great. That's awesome. It's awesome when I guess, you know, just imagining kind of what it would be like to be a creative director. I'm sure it's just an awesome feeling when you discover that kind of grail of a game after so many maybe, you know, not the best prototypes, you know, out there, and it's like, wow, we've hit gold here, or we've struck gold, and that's awesome. Um what is it like working with the designers? And maybe this applies to you too, Vince.
Mhm.
You know, when you guys decide to move forward with a prototype, especially if you meet them at a convention and you're playing all these prototypes, how do you move forward with the designers of the games? What's the process like about all that?
Well, I can talk about this. Well, typically we don't just sign a game, or rarely just sign a game after a convention. Typically, we want to bring it back to the office, play it more a couple times, have a bit more view. Sometimes one of the person will fall in love with the design and then show it to more people, and then the more aspects of the game kind of show up that maybe even more reinforcing, or actually the other way around, actually pushing it down. But typically, once we play a game and we like it, 10 minutes later, that game designer received an email from us saying, "Hey, we want to work with you. We want to sign a design." So all our game designers signed a licensing contract with us. We don't buy games from people. We license them. So they basically get a share revenue of every single game sold by us. And it's a very short contract, but basically that typically give us a 5-year period for us to be able to basically work on their game, make it pretty, manufacture it, put it on a Kickstarter or on shelf in stores, and and yeah, and turn them into products. Yeah.
Awesome. No, I mean, it sounds like there's a lot that goes into it behind the scenes. I know it does. I mean, I know there's a lot of steps that go into creating a game to getting it to people's tables. So this is cool to learn more about specifically what it was like for Mutants from both of you. Um, would you say the best way to learn more about mutants is to definitely go to the Kickstarter page and kind of keep up with all the stretch goals that we've been unlocking and everything?
I mean, we certainly put a lot of love into this kind of page so that they are as pretty and as explicit as possible. We are very grateful to have a huge community of reviewers and bloggers in general, whether on YouTube or writers that have actually already covered pretty extensively mutants. So whoever doesn't know the game yet can definitely learn a lot more on that Kickstarter page. Yeah, I think.
Awesome. I think briefly we can just talk about just quickly what we've gotten to the table recently. Maybe our most recent game. I saw that you shared an Everdell picture the other day, Vince.
Yeah, actually, I played yesterday. I played yesterday night with my wife and really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I found Everdell really charming. There's a lot of thinking based on optimizing your resources, and what's interesting is that it's a worker placement that when you're out of worker, you're still not out of turns. And I thought that was the clever thing, is that as long as you have resources, you can still play even though you don't have a worker left. And overall had a very good time. What was your last play, Philippe, that you enjoyed?
Actually, I usually have the same answer to this kind of question. So last 10 games I played was prototypes, because we are right after Excel, so I
It's so true.
Yeah.
prototypes to playtest, but actually some of them are really brilliant, and I'm pretty sure we're gonna see at least one of the prototypes I played recently in the last few days next year published by our company, hopefully.
Oh, that's awesome.
I again had this, this sweet moment of discovery, which you mentioned a few minutes ago. That okay, you play the new prototype for the first time, and okay, that okay, probably we need to. There's still lots of development, but okay, you feel it that there's something great in it. So I had a few. I cannot talk yet about those. And about published games, I recently played. I guess it was Railroad Inc. So the roll and ride I bring from Essen. Very cool, simple, but very puzzly, very finicky, quick game, quick roll and write game about building train and highways, train routes and highways. So, and I'm looking forward. I'm gonna play probably tonight new Azul Stained Glass of Sintra. So I'm looking forward to this one. But most of my recent plays was prototypes. Yeah.
I recently, well, actually last night, played Tikal by Wolfgang Kramer. Yeah, it's the first action point game I've ever played, and I really, really enjoyed it. I have my weekly board game nights on Wednesday nights, and I played it. Someone taught me how to play, and I really enjoyed it. I had never played an action point game before, which there aren't a ton out there. Or at least popular, that have come out in recent years, that to my knowledge. But I really enjoyed it, and it's designed by the same guy who designed El Grande and Downforce. So I was happy to kind of play another game by him. But to wrap things up, thank you everyone for watching. We're definitely gonna be doing more and more of these episodes, so definitely tune in. We'll start scheduling them so they're not as a surprise as it was today. But thanks again for joining Lucky Duck Quack episode 1, and we will see you next time, guys.
Thank you so much, Arian, for putting this together. See you guys later.
Thank you so much. Bye bye. Until next time. Quack.
Quack.